Okay. Oh, that's right. Okay. Certain eyes only? What are you talking about? Forbidden film? You know what just hit me? I never actually finished the series, didn't I? It's 2022, and I never finished talking about the Alien series. It's weird, isn't it? My friends and I, we saw all the movies in one marathon. I wrote scripts, but I never actually finished talking about them. Wow. That is... Wow. Okay. Let's just wrap this whole thing up, alright? Because we're like halfway there anyway. We only got 2 more movies to go. So let us talk about Alien 3, which, depending on who you ask, is most likely the ugly duckling of the entire Alien series. And let me tell you something, folks. After watching all 4 of these, and after analyzing them very closely, I can tell you all this. Alien 3 is the worst out of all of them. It's the worst one of the main 4. I'm not talking about the 2 prequel movies, Prometheus and Alien Covenant. I am not talking about the AVP movies. Those are not canon. I am talking about in terms of the main 4 Alien movies, this is the worst. You may be wondering why. I am going to tell you. I'm going to tell you in explicit detail why Alien 3 is considered the ugly duckling of the entire series. The plot of this movie involves Ripley crash landing on a prison planet called Veronia Fury 161, where there are only male prisoners. Apparently, she is the only one who survives. Yeah, killing off characters we care about, to me, is a cheap way of trying to develop a character. As a result of this, she is once again alone with no one to interact with. There are a few people she interacts with, but most of them either don't want her there, or they're cold-hearted criminals who want to give her a hard time. The main reason is that she's the only female in this all-male prison. The alien somehow escapes, and this time, there are no weapons to kill it. Which, to be fair though, that actually makes sense because this is a prison planet, and if there are weapons in the prison, and there's a breakout, then the prisoners will get the weapons and you know the rest. Because this prison has no weapons, they now have to find a way to defeat it without a gun. Of course, like usual, the head of a prison says the whole alien thing is nonsense, and then bodies start disappearing like you'd expect. One problem with this movie is that the whole thing is completely predictable. The alien gets revealed way too early, and it's so cheap. And another thing, killing off characters that we care about in the next movie, to me, is a very cheap way of trying to develop a character. It's all cheap. There's no build-up. We know there's only one alien in this facility. We know that the alien is going through the ventilation system, killing off prisoners one by one. We know all of this. There are no surprises here, folks. You can literally predict what the alien is going to do from the moment it arrives on this planet. The opening shows images of a Sulaco, the ship from the last movie, being attacked by one of the facehuggers. That would actually make sense as to how she landed on the prison planet anyway. That does not, however, explain how the Xenomorph arrived on the planet in the first place. Yes, my friends and I, we watched the assembly cut, which essentially is the director's cut, and we were told that it's much better than the theatrical cut. But to me, assembly cut or no assembly cut, there are still plot holes. Even with the assembly cut, it still doesn't explain much. And yeah, the original intention is sort of there, and I use sort of in quotes for a reason, but it's still leaving out pieces that are essential to the story, like how the Xenomorph even got to this planet in the first place. Okay, there is one sort of explanation. We do see the Xenomorph chestburster bursting out of a buffalo's stomach, but it still doesn't explain how the Xenomorph got in the buffalo's stomach in the first place. You may have noticed I use the term alien in plural, as in there's only one alien this time around. This, I don't mind too much. It's going back to basics. But remember how in the last movie we saw how the Xenomorphs thrived? Here, nothing. The movie does not explore more of the lore of the Xenomorph. In fact, there's hardly much to speak of. In the first film, the alien has a short life, so it needed to produce eggs and find human hosts in order to reproduce their species. In the second film, they thrived by recolonizing their homes, maneuvered through ventilation systems, not just by itself, but in groups, and are under the control of a queen alien. In Alien 3, it's just one alien, and this time, acting like a xeno dog. Yes, it maneuvers very fast through hallways, grabs its prey like a hawk, that's all. In fact, here's a little trivia. During the making of this movie, the producers actually dressed up an actual dog like a xenomorph. They later admitted it was stupid. You actually see that dog in like one shot. I liked the first person shots through the eyes of a xenomorph. Those were good, but this felt like a big letdown from the first two films. I mean, yeah, this Xenomorph is faster than the alien in the first film, but nothing else has been improved upon. To be quite honest with you, I was expecting a king alien. One more tyrannical and more powerful than the Queen was. A king who was planning on dominating Earth, creating an army of xenomorphs planning their final attack on Earth. A king who was more slick, clever, and smarter than all the other aliens combined. And the king is out for revenge against Ripley for killing the alien queen. And thus, the only way to stop this king is by going back to the planet where it all started and nuking the entire planet so that it would never happen again. But no, we just get one alien. Pooh. The characters are mostly one-dimensional. We only get to know 3 characters. She has some connection with a doctor named Clemens. He's a decent guy, but a bit flat. He's only there because of an accident that happened at his hospital. Another character we get to know is Dylan, a minister who one minute is a simple guy preaching the Gospels, the next he acts like Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction. Although he's a woman murderer, he at the very least tries to keep order in the prison. Oh, there's a guy named Gallic who is a rather suspicious character. I can't tell if he wants to wipe out all the prisoners by wanting the alien to run loose, or if he's mentally ill and doesn't know what he's doing. And yes, I'm reviewing Gallic based on the assembly cut and not the theatrical version. I forgot to mention Lance Henriksen is in this movie. He returns as Bishop for only one scene. He's used only to show Ripley what happened on the ship the night they crashed. Outside of that, everyone is wallpaper. You don't know their names, all the other characters are identical to one another. They're all rapists, murderers, child molesters, and any other hate crime you can think of. There is not one character who is wrongfully accused, nor do they act hopeful for their release. And outside of Dylan and Clemens, none of them admit to what they did. There are no upbeat characters to lighten the mood, no characters to root for outside of Ripley. In short, the movie has a depressing tone throughout the course of the film, and it never recovers from it. I actually couldn't find any more themes in Alien 3. Any theme that it was trying to establish got thrown out the window a long time ago. Alien 3 is a blank canvas with nothing to show for it. Another problem is Ripley herself. Remember what a fierce, strong, yet compassionate and motherly affectionate character she was in the last film? In this movie, she says things and does things she would never do. For example, early in the film, she wants to investigate how Newt died. Clemens says she drowned, but she wants an autopsy regardless. The reason? to check for cholera. Yes, that's a serious condition, but that's not the real reason, and we know that. And she knows that too, but the script won't let her. And no, don't say it's amnesia, because she has none of that. I will say that because Fury 161 has no weapons to defeat the alien, they now have to be crafty. For example, one plan involves trapping the alien in the toxic waste room, a room where anything that gets in cannot get out. I will read you the plan now. To kill the Xenomorph by burning the ventilation system, cornering the alien, and then trapping it in the toxic waste room, which according to them, hasn't been used in years. Now, am I the only one that thinks that's a stupid plan or what? When that doesn't work, they go with plan B, to throw it in the molten steel furnace. I will admit I was curious as to how they were going to do it, but other than that, I wasn't really into the story all that much. The production design was okay. It reminded me of Metropolis when we see the steel workers below ground to show the contrast between the high class and the lower class. Some of the decisions the characters make makes no sense. The first kill in this movie involved a guy who was cleaning dirt from a fan in the ventilation system in one of the, 8 different vents in this prison. He sees some random slime in the vents and goes to check it out. At this point, there are no surprises. We know what's coming. The alien pounces on him and he gets chopped out by the fan. Here's the thing. He was hired by Clemens to do this job as part of his rehabilitation program, but the head of the ward rules his death as sucked up in the fan due to a sudden burst of wind. Guys, can I ask you a question? A logical question here? Okay. Why would you hire a guy to clean a fan knowing that it was dangerous, only to have him get sucked up by a sudden gust of wind? If you knew that it was dangerous, why did you send him down there? There's more stupid decisions from the writers. Why would they let prisoners roam free in the facility with no guard or ward members? This leads into Ripley almost getting raped by these guys. Don't tell me that they were sleeping again. Honestly, I was actually kind of struggling to try and find things to say about this movie because this movie offers so little that it baffles me that somehow they try to create some kind of depth to this movie. Would you like to know what the big twist is? Or do you want to watch the movie for yourself? Stop here, go check the movie out, and then come back. Otherwise, if you don't really care, because most likely scenario you'll probably not check this movie out, I'll just tell you. We find out that Ripley has an alien inside of her, and according to her, she's carrying the new queen. As a result, this sets up a new plan to wipe out the Xenomorph by throwing it in the furnace or killing it with molten liquid. Originally, this was meant to be the last Alien movie, so obviously, they had to end the movie with a bang, but instead, they ended it with a whimper. And spoiler alert, the ending is slightly different in the assembly cut as opposed to the theatrical cut. In the assembly cut, Ripley sacrifices herself by dropping herself into the molten furnace just before the alien is burst out of her chest. In the theatrical version, as she leaps off a platform, the alien bursts from her chest and she's holding it all the way down, which would have happened anyway. What the hell happened to this movie? Seriously, how did we go from 2 fantastic movies to this piece of dirt? How? What happened to this movie that caused this movie to be nothing more than mud on your shoes that will never go away? I'm going to repeat that. How did we go from 2 iconic films to this piece of burnt toast left on the sidewalk on a hot summer afternoon? You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna take a look at the behind the scenes documentaries in this box set, or the Blu-ray set depending on which one you own, and we are going to find out what happened. No, actually, we're not just going to do that. We're also going to consult a computer, because apparently the computer seems to know more about this movie than we do. Okay, we're going to find out why this movie is such a catastrophic disaster. Information forbidden? Emergency request override. What is special information? 103842. Oh my god. What the? Okay. You want to know what happened? There were 3 different versions of this movie. 3 different scripts written by several different people. Some of them were better than others. One version, written by Vincent Ward, would serve as the foundation for what the final product would become. The film was set in a sphere-shaped planet that was colonized by monks who were banished from the rest of society due to their beliefs. The buildings are made entirely of wood, they have an 8-foot mountain of hay, the atmosphere is so thin that if you pierce your head through the clouds, you would be breathing the empty void of space, and they have no weapons on their planet either. When Ripley crashes on the planet's surface, so does the alien. When the alien shows up and kills some of the monks, they lock up Ripley in a wooden cell, believing that by doing so, they will be saved. Ripley is having visions of weird xenomorph mutations, and this leads to realizations that she could be harboring an alien inside of her. It ended with them cutting the alien out of Ripley, and one of the monks sacrificing himself to rid the planet of the alien. So yes, while you still get the same basic concept of the characters from the last movie getting killed and the xenomorph inside of Ripley, at the very least, there's a little bit of substance here. There's a little bit of something using the power of faith to destroy the alien. So that, at the very least, I can understand what they were going for. You know what, to be honest, I would actually love to see what the other versions of Alien 3 were like, because any one of them would have been better than what we ended up getting. The film started production without a script, so by the time they hired David Fincher, production designer and prop artist, they were working without an idea as to what the film was about. Several producers and writers were fired before filming began, and Sigourney Weaver wasn't even going to be in it unless the original writers and producers from the first movie were brought on board. On top of that, H.R. Geiger had many different illustrations showing off new abilities for the Xenomorph. One idea involved the alien killing people by kissing them, another idea involved the Xenomorph's skin being stretched out like solar panels, and another idea involved a baby Xenomorph like Bambi. Their words, not mine. But almost all of these ideas were cut, and H.R. Geiger himself would be very hurt by this movie. Not only that, but the movie was rushed into production within a 2-month time span. The window was so short that there was little time to develop the alien. That is why you are treated with the generic fast-paced alien you see in the movie. To add insult to injury, by the time the movie was finished, it was never finished. It was abandoned so that the studio can see what needed to be shot. They had to go through tons of meetings, tons of fighting, and eventually decided there needed to be reshoots. Even the ending was a nightmare. And then it only got worse. David Fincher had to be both a director and a producer. When he got done shooting, he had to be on the phone with the studio until sometime between 1 and 2 in the morning. There was also pressure from Fox to release the movie in a certain way by a certain time. David was emotionally and physically exhausted by the end of it. Hardly any of the cast members liked doing the movie. The filmmakers didn't know how to fix the mistakes. When they showed their finished product to Fox, which is what you saw in the assembly cut, the studio forced them to cut a lot of material out, meaning that certain elements of the plot were straight up removed, and on top of that, some scenes had to be reshot, which was a huge inconvenience for everyone involved. And by the time the film was released, it had such a backlash that even devoted Alien fans stopped caring about the series. In short, the movie was a production nightmare from beginning to end. And as I have said before, if you're able to digest all of that, whenever a movie has production problems and it is not fixed within a reasonable time frame, the results will always show. When the making of documentaries straight up says that they did not like the results that they put out and that the movie was not as good as it could have been, you know the movie was doomed from the start. But teaser trailer was a complete lie. At least for those who are not aware of the production fiasco that was going on. It proclaimed that the third movie was going to take place on Earth, but by the time the teaser trailer was completed, that entire plotline got scrapped.
In 1992, we would discover on Earth, everyone can hear you scream.
This is one of the worst sequels I've ever seen in my life. It's not one of the worst films I'd ever seen, thankfully, but it's not a good movie. I know there are people out there who do like the movie despite all its problems, but the movie needed help. It needed somebody to save it. It needed the right people to get on board and save the movie, like the original Star Wars. The original Star Wars had a lot of production problems because they were doing things that no other film was doing at the time. But it got saved thanks to hiring the right people at the right time. Alien 3 did not have that luxury. And when a movie that has production problems gets saved, it's usually pretty rare. It's one thing to say that you like the movie despite its problems or its issues. It's another to totally excuse everything wrong about this movie and call it good without even taking the time to analyze why you think it's good. It's nice that we have a movie where there's no weapons to defeat the alien. It's nice that we have decent production design, and it's nice that we would have David Fincher on board as the director. For me personally, as somebody who really appreciated the first two films, appreciated how they were made, how they were told, what an impact they were, and how it was able to incorporate many different types of themes without even knowing it. This just felt like a slap in the face. It felt like, I was not expecting the movie to be good or anything. I thought it was going to be fine. It was going to be alright. But when you compare it to other threes, like Back to the Future 3, or Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King, or Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, or Return of the Jedi, or Revenge of the Sith, this doesn't compare. I'm so glad that David Fincher has actually directed good stuff. Seven, The Social Network, The Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, the 2011 one, Gone Girl, Zodiac. He is a decent director, but I do appreciate his work, and it's nice to know that he refuses to even think about this movie again. It really hurt him that much. I'm just glad that this is the only one of the four films that's crap. It needed something, some life into it, but it's so depressing and so full of nothing. I don't even know if I want to watch it again. Like, this was literally my first time watching it, and I'm already like, the bad taste in my mouth is still there. And that's why I call it an unintentional disaster, because this should not have happened. Period. This should have been a decent movie, or at the very least an okay movie. It's so weird because 4 is usually a bad sign in sci-fi movies or horror movies or whatever. It's usually a bad thing. When you go on for 4 films, that's usually a sign in horror films where you're running out of ideas. I now understand why we have a 4th one. Nobody wanted to accept how it ended. Nobody wanted to accept that this was the last one. It needed a comeback.
For the last time.
Alien 3.